us on another episode of Ask Sharifah Videocast. I am your host, Sharifah Hardie, and do I have an amazing show for you today. But before I get into the show, before I introduce our guest, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and share this interview because friends don't let friends miss out on Ask Sharifah. So what we want to do is if you have questions, if you have comments, please be sure to ask your questions or comments in the comment section, and I'll go ahead and ask them to our guest. Now, today's guest is a wonderful friend of mine. She's a very wonderful lady. I love speaking to her. We've spoke on different occasions, and she's actually a returning guest. We learned so much. We had so much fun. The last time we said, hey, I have to have you back, and we have the honor of having her back today. So let's see what we find out. We're going to introduce the ambassador of happiness, Maura Sweeney. Good afternoon, Maura. How are you?
Hi there, Sharifah. How are you? And it's great to see you again.
I know, it's wonderful to see you, and you are glowing today. And I can't wait because we decided to do it again. I know the last time you were traveling, you just got back in and we did the interview. You was like, Sharifah, I'm not at my full speed. So today I have the feeling that you're like 150%. We're going to get that Maura Sweeney that brings happiness all over the world. So tell us a little bit about you. Give us a little bit about your background.
Well, background. You know, everybody, especially today, people do a multitude of things. And in my case, my background includes almost becoming a lawyer until I left law school because I wasn't happy. Hence why I decided to follow a happier path. I have about a decade or more of experience in corporate life where I was started out as an executive recruiter. So I know what that energy is and those good qualities that make people attractive to other people and to other businesses. Then I spent 10 years, well, actually the whole time, 10 to 12 years, working in the telecommunications industry in management, sales management, marketing, where I really had to develop and train the right people, come up with the right kind of corporate culture, figure out how to work out success when a lot of times I was faced with a lot of challenges. I spent several years as a homeschooling mom. I owned a business with my husband in the computer industry, but for the past 10 years, which of course now makes me sound like as old as Methuselah, I'm the trademarked ambassador of happiness. And what I do is I share a lot of the principles of what I've learned over the course of my life in leadership, in creating great cultures, and because of those two things, I end up helping people feel a lot better as themselves, help them with their messaging, and also help them feel happier and internally more successful. Because if you feel happy in what you're doing, Sharifah, somehow that happiness translates into a much more positive energy. And that energy is the very thing that when we're in business or we're dealing with other people in any facet of life helps us rise to another level. You know, I just heard one thing from someone who mentioned to me that I don't know if they said they could not see it on Facebook. Could you check and make sure, like, let me just go. I know this might be interrupting things, but I'm going to go on my own Facebook page and see if I can find it. Okay?
No, it's fine. This is what
it's good.
We're just going to do it live. So I just tagged you in it. You know, they should be able to see it on your page now, but go ahead and check. Go ahead and do whatever you have to do.
One of the things I don't do, okay, let's see.
You should be good. So people
should be good at this. Let's see. All right, so if I want to go right to your page, which is like I like Sharifah, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I just tagged you, so
wait a minute, then that's even easier, Sharifah. Hang on.
Exactly. So everyone can watch you live.
And I see me too. All right. Good.
All right. We are live now. So if anyone has questions, comments, we're definitely going to have a wonderful conversation, not only about happiness, but how to get yourself in front of the media. And I know that's what a lot of people want to know. I know that's what I want to know. That's what my clients want to know. Everyone wants to know how to go viral, how to get the media's attention. So any information you would be able to offer. But first, we definitely want to talk about being happy because, you know, I think that's the most important thing.
I agree. I think that's a good place to start. And let me just backtrack to say one of these reasons why I talk about happiness a lot, because it's so foundational to all of us. My backstory was I was 23 years old, Sharifah, doing everything I was taught to do. I was groomed for my life from the time I was 5 onward to become a lawyer. So I went to college, majored in political science. Then I went to law school and was halfway through law school. But inwardly, I never envisioned myself doing that kind of work. Not only did I not see myself doing it as a lawyer, but I didn't have the passion for it. So literally halfway through law school, one day, I couldn't get up out of my chair. You know how scary that is? And you know why? The energy in me, the light within me, Sharifah, was daily dimming. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a 40-year career after I finished law school, living up in New Jersey and New York where I didn't want to live, practicing in this career I don't see myself in. And the energy and light was so diminishing that one day I couldn't get out of my chair to drive myself to law school. That became, what people say, like they have these major moments in life that are life-changing. In my case, I couldn't go any further. And I thought, this is not going to work. I couldn't get myself up to move. So I thought, I need to get off this path and I need to do something that I feel is my inner joy, my passion. And literally the way I saw it back then, not only did I feel like a ton of bricks carrying these things that were not me, but I knew that there was a light inside of me that was dimming because it was in the wrong direction. And I thought, I'm going to follow this inner light. I'm going to follow the things that are important to me. I might not even know exactly what it is, but I'm going to keep following these things. And as I do, I'm going to look for those things that are meaningful. And you know what happened? My energy increased. My success increased. My abilities to expand myself increased. This is interesting. I could have probably been, let's say, a decent lawyer, whatever, because I always work hard at what I do. But Sharifah, I ended up, by the time I was maybe 25, I was in management at the third largest telecom company in the country. But by 26, 27, I got the chairman's award as having the top branch office in the nation. Now, I didn't have a business background. It really wasn't what I trained for, but what I was doing was following what I loved. And what I loved to do was find great people, train great people, create great cultures, find the talents that other people had and turn them into experts. And also, I guess I was something of a problem solver because in our business, we were selling vaporware, things you couldn't see, but I had to come up with ways in which our salespeople could go out and feel energized. So basically, I left something that sounded good, that was almost killing my insides, followed what I loved, and discovered my own success by going after that inner light. So that is one of the reasons why I am so passionate today as the trademarked ambassador of happiness, making a lot of my work help people tap in to those things they like. Now, let me tell you this. Do you see what we're doing today? I love talking with people like you. One of the things I'm not great at is administration. So everybody has stuff in their lives that they're really better at, that they enjoy, and things they don't. The point is, if we could learn to get our joy out of what we love, that joy and that energy that comes from it and the happiness that comes from it helps us to do some of those other things that may not be our favorite things. So ask me the next question, because I could keep going on and on and on. But that's my backstory, and I know what it's like to be living a life without life on the inside. And the happiness factor, I'm telling you what, we would have a different world. We would have different ways of doing business. We'd have different kind of relationships if people felt that freedom to be themselves and to be a little bit happier. And we could always talk about what it is that makes us happy. But
no, we can definitely talk about this. But let me ask you this, Maura, because you know briefly a little bit about my story. I was laid off about 8 times. I lost everything that I owned in order to pursue and get to where I am now. Teenage mother, built my first website in 1994. And so when I speak to people, that they tend to ask me, how did you keep going? How did you, not give up? How did you not quit? And I always respond that I didn't have a choice. There wasn't a plan B. There wasn't another option where I was like, you know what, let me just go and do this. So I had to continue on this path. Now, one of the things that stood out to me is you said you were in a chair and you physically could not move. Some people would argue it was a mental block, or, it was just in your head. You could have kept going, because it seems interesting that you're trying to get away from being a lawyer, where there are millions of people who were like, oh my God, I would love to be a lawyer. So what are your thoughts when people say, you know what, I couldn't keep going, even though there are millions and millions of people who keep going every day at jobs that they really do not want to be at?
I know. And sometimes I think people think that what they're doing, they have to do for the rest of their lives, or that once they make a commitment to a career, they can't leave it. But I know one guy, he was a heart specialist. He decided one day when he got a 2 a.m. or a 3 a.m. call to go do surgery, he thought, this is not what I signed up for. And he went into a different industry, and he too has changed industries a few times, and he's happy. Mm-hmm. And I think there's something in that keeps us more energized. But I don't mean to oversimplify everything. I'm so glad you brought up the fact that was your background. You had to make things work. In my case, I was paying for law school, so I had loans I had to pay. I had recently been married. If that plan A wasn't going to work, I had to find a new plan. So I think there's something within us that sometimes, even if we don't even think we have the gumption, or we don't even know where we're going. That's how I felt. Like, I know what I don't want to be, but what do I want to be? That was scary. And I thought, I have to be something, and I'm just going to go out there. And really what I did is I put out notices everywhere. I just kept pursuing everything I could until something caught, something catched on. And then I just worked with whatever I had. And I think that's an interesting thing. Sometimes, Sharifah, I don't know who sells us the bill of goods, that life is always easy, or that life owes us something. Maybe some people are very lucky and everything goes their way, and wonderful, right? But I want to tell somebody this, whoever's listening tonight, they need to hear it. I mentioned to you that I was also a recruiter. I actually worked part-time as an executive recruiter when I was in school full-time at law school. And one of the things I learned listening to all of these people I was interviewing so that I could present them to corporate clients is that the people that went through tough times and had to find new solutions, or had to change directions when things weren't working well, they were always the people I would think, oh, this is good. They were actually easier candidates for me to get behind and present, as opposed to, let's say, somebody who had the perfect resume, Ivy League educated, was working for IBM back then. It was all the things that sounded great, but the people that were scrappy, that were resourceful, that went through tough times, that had to figure something new out, to me, those were the winners. And I think sometimes people wrongly believe that if things don't go well for them, that nothing's going to go well, when actually the very challenges can become our catalyst to our success.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had that same experience, because after getting laid off so many different times, I was like, okay, no one's going to hire me, because everybody's like, oh, she doesn't stay at jobs long. And then I went for an interview, looked at my resume, and they said, oh, you have the resume of an engineer, because I had so many different skills. And so I was like, oh, it is in my perception. It's the way I see my resume. And when I took that perception of, look, I was here, I did this, I did that, it became something that moved me forward, as opposed to something that held me back. Now, Maura, one of the things that you mentioned, and I definitely want to discuss this in regards to happiness, it seems to be like a rule of thumb or a school of thought that if you want to be happy, you have to basically be poor. And what I mean by that is people think you get these high-end jobs, like I'm a lawyer, I'm a heart surgeon, and I'll give it all up. And now this person is working, at the local pizzeria or something. And they're like, oh, but I'm happy. There seems to be an impression that you can't get that high-paying, successful job and be happy.
I don't know. Isn't that funny how the mind can operate, right? I have seen, you know what's amazing? I think we all have to find our own version of happiness, right? There's some
Yes.
people, they're against it. Oh, look at those big corporate people. I don't like them. They're probably nasty because they're making all that money. And
Yes.
some other people think, oh, well, I'm out in the Andes Mountain helping the poor people. I'm happy. You know what it comes down to? And I'm like this with everything. Sharifah, my happiness or my version of happiness and my happiness lifestyle, my happiness career may not be yours. Like
Yes.
when people say they always wanted to go to law school, or they did want to go to be an engineer, or they want to play music somewhere. It's what gives you that positive energy. You know, this may sound really simplistic, but one of the other things I did is I raised and homeschooled our daughter while working in business and doing several other things. And I didn't want her to grow up as following her mother. You know, I wanted her to be able to tune into those things she liked. And being in a homeschooled setting, I could kind of expose her to things. And there were a couple of things that I'd bring her out to, and she's like, oh, Mom, I don't think I do too well on that. Or, oh, I'm not interested. And I always used to say this. I said, whatever you're doing in life, try something. Maybe you never tried it. Maybe you have an attitude about something that you think you will or won't like it. I said, go in. And I said, just give it a try. And I said, ask yourself how you feel. And I want to give you this one strange thing. And she was this young child. She went in and it was some kind of a musical singing thing. And she didn't even think she could sing. She came out of this one event, or just it was a practice session, and she had a smile so big on her face. She loved the people. She loved the instructor. She found out she loved to sing. She was having fun. So sometimes, you know, our minds get in the way and even our attitudes get in the way. But if we expose ourselves to things, we can literally feel when we feel lifted up and empowered. And usually at that point, our ideas start flowing, you know? We're like, ooh, I want to try more of this. And then the energy starts going. Or we could be in a place that we go to, we think it's going to be real good, and we get there and we think, oh, this is not good. Maybe the energy's not good. Maybe the people that we're working with are not all that great. And maybe it's the same thing you're interested in, but you maybe need to do it somewhere else with some other people. Case in point, you know, you introduced me as your friend, and that's how I feel about you. We've never met in the flesh, but you know what, Sharifah, somebody needs to hear this today. One of the things that contributes a lot to happiness and success in business and in life is connecting with like-spirited people.
You love that.
Like-spirited. The same thing you're doing, but you could do it with a real dud or somebody who's not running on the same wavelength you are, right? And then suddenly it's the same thing, but you put some other people in, and the energy and the, it's not just positive energy, but there's this dynamic where people's different ideas start bouncing back and forth, and it's like one idea leads to another. And that's where I go into that feeling of being uplifted, feeling more expansive, feeling more empowered, and then feeling more creative. And then when that happens, that energy actually helps us to do so much more in what we're doing. So I love being around you.
I love being around you more. You are hilarious. We have the best talks, the best conversations. I love your posts. I love your energy, for lack of a better term. You are amazing. And if you are just now tuning in to Ask Sharifah Videocast, today's guest is Maura Sweeney, and we are discussing happiness, and we'll get to a little bit more. But again, go ahead and share this interview, because friends don't let friends miss out on Ask Sharifah. If you have questions, if you have comments, please be sure to ask them in the comment section, and I'll go ahead and read them to our guests. I want to thank everyone who's tuned in, everyone who sent some likes, some loves, Robert Thor for watching. Few people are coming in and out of the show. So we're going to talk a little bit more with Maura. Now, Maura, I was looking through your information, and you are serious about happiness. You didn't just give it a passing thought like some people, like, oh, happiness, I want to be happy. You're like, you are serious. You tell us, I mean, you even, like you said, trademark. Then why was it so important for you to make that clear that you're the ambassador of happiness?
Well, you know what? I don't want to tell you it was accidental. First of all, I'm serious about happiness, which is kind of a funny oxymoron, right? I'm
Exactly.
serious about happiness because I know what it feels like to be either unhappy or disempowered, or feel like you don't have your voice, or you're not captaining your own life, your own ship. And it happened really from earlier in life. And I actually felt something like a victim as a child. I
Mhm.
felt like I couldn't be who I was. And so I thought, I don't like feeling unhappy. So I literally had to learn how to change my thoughts, how to go from feeling like a victim or poor me. How often we can feel like that 10 times a day, can't we?
Yes.
Read the newspaper, find out what's going on in the latest news, and everybody's got a reason to feel unhappy or victimized. So I actually had to train myself to think in new ways. And fast forward, I took everything, Sharifah, in my background and all of the passions and interests I had, which were leadership, being a person of influence, and being really a person that would help bring about unity in the world and a better society. And so this whole thing about being an ambassador of happiness, I started writing, I did videos, I wrote some books, I started doing interviews, and ultimately, when I was invited to speak at the Nelson Mandela Day celebrations, the first that they had ever hosted, was UNESCO, United Nations, what was it? UNESCO Center for Peace that ran the program, introduced me as the ambassador of happiness because I wrote about what it is that makes people feel happy, and I traveled a lot. And I thought, what a great title, that so fits me. And then everybody else said, Maura, that sounds just like who you are. And it was a title that was never created, but it was a very savvy businessman who found me on LinkedIn. He was from the New York metro area, and he spent a lifetime creating things, marketing things, and he has a radio show. And he wrote to me, he said, Maura, I have interviewed so many New York Times bestseller authors and all these other people. He said, but I've never interviewed the ambassador of happiness. I want to have you on the show. And I don't know whether he was in Las Vegas or whatever. At the end of the show, he said, I hope you got your title trademarked. And I said to him, trademarked? I never really thought about it. He said, Maura, don't be dumb. He said, if that's who you are, he said, get it trademarked before somebody else does. And so I thought, well, this guy, obviously the marketeer, and he knew it. And I thought it was fitting for me. And here's something else for any entrepreneur, any business person out there who's always looking for new ideas. There was never an ambassador of happiness until I came along. I followed what I loved. I was looking for my own happiness, and I knew my happiness came from being an agent of change in a world of dissension, division, disappointment. And I wanted to be like this voice out there on a number of levels that could make people feel better about themselves, better about society, better about the impact that they could make. And here I created my own title. And you want to know the irony of all? This is why I always tell people, go within and see how you feel, is because if I wasn't told what to do while growing up, I would have wanted to be a combination of a goodwill ambassador to South America, because I also speak Spanish, and also get myself involved with the media where I could talk with people like you. And thirdly, that I could share my messages on leadership, because I really believe the world needs some better leaders in every facet of life. And I'm talking about from the neighborhood, the families, the communities, the churches, the businesses, the government institutions, banking, you name it. And so this is what I do. I talk about leadership. I bring an inspiring message, and I tell people or give people suggestions on how they could be a person of influence, regardless of whether they have that official leadership title.
Yes, let's talk about that. So let's talk about LEAD. What exactly is LEAD, your program?
Well, you know how everybody loves little mnemonics to say, well, how could I be a leader? The first time I ever came up with that, I was invited to speak at a university in Serbia. And they had a specific group of young people that were all involved with leadership. And I thought, okay, I'm speaking in another country. What's an easy way to share? And I thought, let me reduce it to 4 things every great leader will do, starting with the letter L, E-A-D. L is look ahead. Look ahead. Now, there are a lot of crazy things that happens when you go to other countries and you start translating for other people whose feelings about the United States are different. But I happen to use this. Think about people who do something in the moment that feels good for them, but they're not thinking about the future, right? Oh, I'm in a position I could get away with something. I've got a little bit of authority here, or I have a little bit of room to move. I think I'm going to take something that doesn't belong to me, or I'm going to do something shortchange. We all know, we know those kinds of things are around us all the time. And so I always say, whatever you're doing, look ahead and say to yourself, how's this going to play out in the future when people find out what I did? Right. Now, I'll just use this, if you don't mind, this little opportunity here. Do you remember the whole thing with Monica Lewinsky and President who didn't have sex with that woman? Well, I happened to mention it to these people, and I said, here he is. He's in the White House. He's a man of enormous importance. I said, but because he's so powerful, he thinks he could take advantage of this opportunity, but he doesn't think ahead to think this is not going to look good.
Absolutely. No, you have to be able to look forward, look ahead. I like that.
So look ahead. That's the L. Because if you could look ahead, then it will help you avoid doing stupid things today that you'll regret later on. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, and by the way, Sharifah, I will tell you, these are all things I've done in my own life and I've developed and had to think about. Number 2 is E, everybody. E stands for everybody. So you know how we're taught in life, well, that's the person I want to impress there, or those are the big people. So let me act and show my best face and do my best work for these people, but not be so good for these people. If you want to be a leader and a person of influence, you want to consider everybody. And let me give you a case in point. I mentioned my career in corporate. So I'm in management, and there are a couple of levels before me when people are going to get hired that they have to go through before they get to my office. Because I always considered everybody, because I always respected everybody and always valued other people's input. A receptionist came in to me and she brought me somebody's resume. It was a guy. And she said to me, can I tell you something, Maura? I said, yes. She said, before this name comes in, she said, he's dressed great, has a nice looking resume. She said, he was talking to me like I was honey, cutie, and I had not one bit of respect in his eyes because I was only a receptionist. And you know what I thought? Thank you, because this is not a guy who's looking out for everybody. He walked into my office, he couldn't say the nicest things about me, and I thought, he's a fake. This is a guy, I'm looking for people that are team people that see the value in everybody. And you know what happened? Because he didn't look out for everybody, it cost him his job. Here's another thing. You want to show partiality to this person and overlook this person, at some point in the future, that one person may either have had a good experience with you, which they share with someone, or they had a bad experience with you, which they share with someone. And that affects your reputation. So consider everybody. A, I could go on forever. The A is advance a cause, a mission, or a vision. And a lot of times people talk about small things, but when you want to lead, come up with like a value that's important. Come up with a cause or something that you love that's important to you. And when it's an idea, people tend to follow. They pick up on the idea, they envision it, and then you get other people with different types of backgrounds that buy into it and help you on your way. And last, D, destiny. Be destiny-minded and legacy-minded so that whatever you're doing, you want to leave something good behind. L, look ahead. A, advance. E, I can't even spell tonight. L is look ahead. E is think of everybody. A is advance a cause or a purpose. And D is be destiny-minded. So you could be somebody's mom, and that child could grow up thinking, my mother was such a leader, and I'm learning how to be a leader because she's showing me the way. or you could be a student. You could be somebody working in the mailroom. You could be making coffee as a barista, and people around you, when they see you're that kind of a person, especially when you're an idea person who's interested in ideas and causes and whatever, people will naturally follow after you. But there's two other things we could talk about that go into good leadership, or three, and that is, number one, what kind of integrity do you have?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you think about anybody in business, right? A lot of times they might want to do something, but they're not a person of integrity. And how often do we run into the same people more than once? Or how often have we found out it's a small world? And if we're lacking in integrity, that thing is going to come back to bite us. But if we have integrity, we may not even know that people behind our backs will be saying, wow, that's a really good person. They may be new in that industry. They may be new in what they're doing, but that's a person you could trust. When they put their name on something, when they say they're going to do something, they're going to do it because I already experienced them in the past. And that, I think, is great for anybody who wants to be a leader or a person of good influence.
Yes, I think definitely the integrity, because you have to follow the LEAD, which is look ahead. So if anyone who has integrity or doesn't have integrity, they have to be able to know that sometime in the future is going to come back and bite them in their tuchus. So that's wonderful. You said there were two other areas. So we talked about integrity.
Like, I think, you know what, this is where I go into this whole thing about leadership, and I really want to empower people to be their bigger and better version of themselves. And a lot of times we get a lot of negative experiences and negative examples out there. So I think about, you want to be a person of integrity. How about this one? How about a person who's transparent? That
Yes.
There's a level of transparency. And you know why I even say this too is, do you ever meet somebody and they, you know, the front looks good, that maybe they dress right, maybe they drive the right car, maybe their website looks good, but the transparency is not there. So you're not really getting who that person is. And more, Sharifah, I could say this. I mean, I think I was like this my whole life, but I see society shifting more and more. People are moving from being transactional, meaning I'm going to buy something from you or you're going to sell something to me. That's the transaction. And they're more into, I want to do business, or I want to work with people that I really know, that I have something in common with, or that are real people to me. They're not just somebody who's selling me something, as in two-dimensional. And I think that transparency is really good. And let me say this too. You know, it's very easy in anybody's world to have multiple faces on, you know, like people that go to church, everything they do is good. They never smoke a cigarette, never drink a glass of wine, and never use any foul language. And then all of a sudden you put them out in the business world and they have a completely different life. They're out at the bar, they're talking about people. You know what I think about that in terms of the whole idea of transparency? Can you find your singular best self, whoever that is, and whatever you believe in, and wherever you are, whoever you're around, that you become the best version of that and the most consistent and harmonized version of that. And then what happens is that your energy is so much freer because you're not hiding anything. You're always being basically who you are. And I think, I'm not going to even say I know people read that in other people, and that extends beyond the physical frame. People start to relate to people now in more sincere ways or deeper ways than they used to 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and it's happening more and more. And so I think that's important. And the last thing that I think is always so good, consider it in friendships, in partnerships, in any kind of a relationship and business. Be an advocate. Be an advocate for other people. You know, a lot of times we might be taught certain things that sound good when we're growing up, and then we get into business and everybody behaves poorly, or a lot of people do. To be an advocate for somebody else who's doing a great job. Like, I can look at you, Sharifah. I look at you and I could so easily advocate for you, because what I see in you is a woman who's very honest. She's easy to know. She's very consistent. And even if you were to change and do something else in another area, you would still be Sharifah. And I could easily advocate for you because it's as if I see you not only as a woman who is adept in all the things that she does, because you're a great promoter and a great sharer of business ideas for other people, but you're also someone that I like and trust. And I love that ability to advocate for other people. But how about another thing? What if you were a person in a place where somebody doesn't have a voice and you're in a position where you can give a voice to that person? You can advocate on their behalf. Let me say, how about if I say it this way? You're in a place where you see people being taken advantage of. Mm-hmm. And you can actually be the voice that advocates and say, you know, this isn't really the greatest situation. Can somebody take a look at this and take care of these people? That's an advocate. An advocate would be somebody speaking up for the underdog. An advocate would be someone saying, you know, we've got a customer care problem over here. We need to address it. How can I help? And how can I work with someone? Or somebody over here was customer service for me, and they did such a great job, and I want to tell you what a great job they did. I don't know about you, Sharifah, but I could be out at businesses, or I could be even at a place like a hotel where I'm in a lobby area and I'm meeting with someone, and there's someone who works there that I'm watching and they're doing a really good job when they don't think anybody's watching them. I will find out who their manager is, and I will go to the manager and say, I want you to notice this person because when nobody's watching them, they are doing a great job for you. That's advocacy. That's leadership. That's lifting people up. And that's being a person of influence that's always pointing to something better and helping wherever you are, things to get better and things to advance. And I think we could all do that in our own small way.
I agree, and I thank you, and I'm so grateful for that observation. And it just resonates with me because that's exactly what I've been doing. That's where the whole Ask Sharifah came from. You know, people are always asking questions about business and online marketing, internet, and SEO, and the common theme was Ask Sharifah. And I get so many different referrals where people contact me and they say, you know what? I am not exactly sure what you do, but Maura said, Ask Sharifah. And then our conversations start. And somewhere along the way, I get to the root of their situation. 25 years, I've been online 25 years, so I'm able to help people. I'm able to advocate for people. But if you see the number at the back, the 833 Ask SDIR, that's the Ask Sharifah telephone directory, which I recently launched. And it was because people would contact me and they would say, Sharifah, I really need somebody who does this. I really need somebody who does this. And I remember my interviews, but sometimes I forget a name or two, but I remember the service that they provide. And so I say, hey, you know what, go to the directory 833 Ask SDIR. And we have so many different categories that people can find from people who have been guests on the show. But the most important thing is that everyone in my directory I know personally. This is not one of those situations where you can just pay to play. I know everyone. Everyone has been vetted. I can tell you who they are. I can show you their interview. And so it's just another way for me to advocate for the people that are around me that I just love and all the products and the services that they have. But they are personally vetted. So I definitely understand. Now we have a few more people who joined us. Lucinda Collis is watching. Lucinda's in the Ask Sharifah telephone directory. If you're looking for someone who can help you with spirituality, she's under spirituality under option 1. Nicole Carver joined us. She says, so glad.
I know Nicole. Hi, Nicole.
Yes. Nicole says, so glad to catch you live tonight. What a great message. So your message tonight is definitely resonating with Nicole. And we talk so much about happiness, but I do not want to get away from one of the things that I personally am so interested in. I want to know, I'm sure our listening audience wants to know, how do you get in front of the media? What information, what tools, what strategies, because we all want media attention.
You're right. And you know what's so great about that? If you could learn to become kind of a do-it-yourselfer, to get in front of the media is the best way to get public relations for yourself. Because look at this conversation. People aren't just hearing something I'm selling. They're learning about who I am. So there's a couple of things. First of all, you want to know what it is that you stand for, what your expertise is, and what it is that you want to stand out about that makes you maybe a little bit different from other people. Obviously, be true to yourself. But once you kind of figure out what your message is and what you want to be known for, then you can take that out into the media. For one thing, you want to have a certain amount of friends on Facebook. It helps, right? You want to have your community of people. But beyond that, some of the things and resources that I often recommend to people is go to a place called Haro, HARO.com. It's helpareporterout.com. Do you know that there are people, everyday journalists, everywhere around the country that are working on stories, and they may have a question that you can answer. And so if you subscribe, if you go to Haro, it's perfectly free, helpareporterout.com or HARO.com, and you will get sometimes a lot of calls every single day, and you could go through the categories. There may just be that one thing there that you could say, I have the perfect answer for that. Now think about this. Cost you nothing to get onto this Haro list, and then you start watching what people are looking for. And if you happen to have the credentials and the answer, and you're ready to give that answer, and it happens to go into an important place, then suddenly someone else out there has indicated you as the quote-unquote expert in their publication on an article that has to do with your area of expertise. That's public relations as opposed to paying for advertisements. And that's a great way of getting into the media. The other thing, if you like to speak, because some people do like speaking, is that you can go to radioguestlist.com. And that's another free service. Sometimes you could pay a little bit per month for these things, but several times a week you'll get a notice. It's like a newsletter. And again, it's the same thing, but it's in a different media. It would be people either that have radio shows or podcasts, and they would be looking for people who might be authors, some of them that might be involved with finance, some people that might be involved with relationships, others that are involved with online marketing and novel ways of getting your product, let's say, out on the market. Others are self-help, spirituality. There's so many things. And when you find these people that are looking for something, you can put out your own little pitch letter. Tell them why you're an expert. Give them an angle that will help them look good. The whole thing is not just to make you look good. It's to help be of service to them in the programming that they're running for their listening audience. And here's the thing, Sharifah, sometimes it could be a hit or miss. You could do it, you could put in a number of pitches, and those are just two areas that I recommend, but I've got several others. Think about how important it is and how changing it could be to get your name in one article or to get on one really great interview. Suddenly now someone else is promoting you rather than you promoting yourself. It is so natural once you get on, but it's also a skill. You have to learn, in a sense, how to take your message, how to refine it, and how to also insert it into somebody else's need. And once you do, it's good. And let me give you one strange story. When I was starting out, I had written several books and about happiness and life stories. I happened to go on Haro, helpareporterout.com, and somebody was looking for the secrets of a happy marriage. Now, I met my husband in 1977. We're still together. We've worked in business 4 times. I happened to just answer. Now, what I didn't know is that the website that was working on it and that was doing this article was Match.com. Now, I wouldn't have thought about Match.com. Guess what she said to me? She interviewed me right away. She said, Maura, you have the 5 very things that Match.com looks for. And she said, you're really helping us look good because we want to show the 5 things that are really important in relationships. And you're the person that has had a happy marriage and a happy relationship. I would have never thought that that would have been how I got there, but I did. But the same is true. If sometimes we just put ourselves out there, it's kind of like if you know sales, you just pitch something and you never know when it just, when it just catches on. And I'm going to say this though, Sharifah, it is work, but boy, oh boy, I also know there's a lot of firms out there that for $5,000, they'll write you a nice press release, or for $10,000, they'll promise to get you on a couple of radio shows. And there's no guarantee that's $10,000 versus learning how to be a person who knows how to deliver good messages and knows how to find those resources. And now that I mention that, I actually have something I offer. It's on my website. I think it's $250 that I charge for it. But I actually run people through a number of these resources, help them with their messaging, show them pretty much how to get media ready. There's a couple of things I've learned over the course of time. I've probably been on 400 media outlets. Print, I've been on TV, I've been on, even overseas, I've been on the news, like so many things, like TV news at night. And so I've learned to share with others.
This is one of your favorites, Maura?
One of my favorite whats?
I said, but Ask Sharifah is one of your favorites, right?
Yes, it is. Sharifah, now think about this. And why is it? It's because I like being in this environment. And why do you have me on? Because you're looking for people like me that have positive messages or whatever.
Who are happy.
Yeah. And now here's another thing. This is another crazy thing. People need to think about this. I love what you're saying. Ask Sharifah. You were like the answer person. That's what I get. The resourceful, almost like the lady with the toolbox. You may not have the exact right answer, but you know where to go. Ask Sharifah. I don't know exactly, but let me do my homework. I'll get back to you, right?
Yeah.
You're like this connector.
I'm the connector.
You're in the same way that I might be an ambassador of happiness, someone who goes not only here, but also overseas. I mean, I've spoken dozens of times and I think a dozen foreign countries, but your name and your title speak about who you are and what you do. Okay. When I started coming out with this idea of writing about happiness, the things that make us happy from the inside, there were actually people that looked at me and said, well, who's your audience? And I said, well, it's people that want to be happy. And people didn't know what that meant. But you know what's interesting? See how you kept, it's like you keep plying your trade. And the more you do it, you almost sort of find your way, right? You do different things. And you find out the things that click, and then one person leads you to somewhere else. One opportunity leads you somewhere else. Well, that's what happened with me. But the interesting thing is, as you follow what you love and as you connect it with other skills that you have, you can have a central thing you do, and then you can have some little side businesses that go along with it.
Absolutely.
And one of mine being that I actually help consult people that need to come up with a message or need to even know what are some of the skills to get involved with the media and to handle interviews with the media, because that's something you kind of learn over time. So it wasn't something I was planning on doing, but I enjoy helping people. I love it. I love it. And when I was in corporate, that's all I did. I was just build people up, train them, build them up, and turn them into experts and kind of turn them into stars. I love it. I love taking great people with great skills and great energy and making them even greater. I think that's part of making a better world and a happier world.
Yes, and that is why you are the ambassador of happiness. So we are coming down to the last few minutes of the show. I've had fun. I've learned a lot. I've got some tips, great websites, Haro, helpareporterout.com. What was the second one? RadioGuestList.com?
Radio Guest List, yes, because they're both free. And what they are, you're basically getting access to people that are looking for people that could make their shows better or make their stories better. And if you're that person, you're right in there.
Absolutely. Now, if you have any, we're again coming down to the last few minutes of the show. So if you have any last questions or comments or want to show a little love to Maura, we have quite a few people watching. Definitely want to go ahead and do that. And Maura, What I like to do at the end of every show is just allow my guests the opportunity to speak directly to our audience, whether they're watching you live or watching in the archives, and let them know what you want them to take away from your interview.
Ooh, okay, here it is. You may look at the world and often feel daunted by it, or you're waiting for the world to do something for you or to validate you. Don't look for anybody to validate you. You go within, you find what you love, and you start pursuing it. And every day, you keep pursuing those things that are important to you. And eventually, you'll go from wanting to be something to being the very thing you wanted. And the other thing I always tell this to people, there'll never be a better you than you. So always look to be the best version of you. Be your genuine self, be your best self, and as you do it, may you find that you're happy and successful too.
I love it. Thank you. Now, give us your website again, please, Maura.
My website is my name, which is Maura. It's M as in Mary, A-U-R-A, the number 4, and the letter U, Maura4you.com. Because whoever you are, I'm for you.
That's right. Maura4you.com. And Maura is here with me on Ask Sharifah Videocast. So I want to thank you for being a guest on today's episode of Ask Sharifah. You are so welcome. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in, everyone for watching the show, sharing the show. We definitely appreciate your support. Now, if you're interested in watching more of our interviews or being a guest, or even placing your product or service in front of the Ask Sharifah audience, please visit the website at AskSharifah.com. Until then, everyone have a wonderful night and tune in for the next show tomorrow at noon with Robert Thor. Good night, all.